insufficient, inadequate, and an insult is what many developing country negotiators said, and is what global civil society said. In fact, the one press conference by developing country negotiators said this is a joke, but it's a deadly joke, and it's a deadly joke for people and the planet. This is nowhere enough. The UN has said we need trillions, and has warned we are already have 1.5 degree on life support, and that by the end of the century will be at 3 degrees. This was called a finance COP for a reason, because developing countries need finance to be able to cut their emissions, to be able to adapt now to ever-increasing temperatures, and of course meet the scale of loss and damage, which is devastating, not just people's lives and livelihoods, but overwhelming many developing countries. And to be able to transition cleanly, that needed finance. And the money that was put on the table, and I have to say, we had 2 weeks of negotiations where developed countries refused to put a number, and then at the very last moment put this totally inadequate number. And it's not a real commitment as well, because it is not guaranteed that that will be public grants. In fact, it's very likely that much of it will be debt-inducing loans and other financial instruments. So far, far off from what is needed, and a real, I think, just a real slap in the face for developing countries who expect developed countries to come and negotiate in good faith.
Yeah, well, as you say, a deadly joke. That's just very sobering indeed, that thought. Talking a little bit more about the debt side of things, that is a recurring critique, isn't it, that much of the climate finance is provided in loan form, which just exacerbates the debt burden on the global south?
Absolutely. Look, it's like an arsonist who burns down somebody's home, turns their back to the flames, and then tells the victim, pick up the bill, and if not, you can't afford to, here, I'll lend you a loan and we'll benefit from that. It's just incredible to think that this is what is being offered to developing countries, but we know it is. Of the 2009 100 billion pledge that was made, just over 30 billion of that was in new and additional public grant climate finance. The rest was overwhelmingly in double counting existing financial flows or in debt creating loans. And we know that many developing countries are trapped, and not just in unsustainable debt repayments, where they're spending more on paying back their debt than they are in protecting their citizens. Because of unjust tax and trade rules, they're also locked into having no choice but to exploit their natural resources, whether that's fossil fuels, to be able to pay back that debt. So we know we need to cut emissions, and those have to be done equitably and fairly. And of course, developed countries bear the largest responsibility for this. But this finance is not a charity. It's not a gift that developed countries are giving to developing countries. It's a legal obligation. It was a legal obligation in the Climate Convention, and it's a legal obligation under the Paris Agreement. And really what's happening behind the scenes here is that the United States, and in the shadows, the UK, the European Union, and other developed countries, really want to dismantle what's left of the Paris Agreement and create a new agreement where they don't want to take any responsibility for anything, and they will say that the responsibility to cut emissions is a challenge for governments to meet domestically and nationally. And of course, that means what we're going to see is what the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty coined climate apartheid, where the rich will use their wealth to seek safety, and it will be the poor who are left to burn and drown. And I think that's the world we are heading towards, unless rich countries step up and do their fair share of effort.